One afternoon in the spring of 1948, a 12-year-old girl named Maggie sat by an open window in her kitchen at her home in a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina. Maggie was trying to do her homework, but she couldn't focus because the entire neighborhood was way too quiet. Now, normally at this time of day, which is when Maggie typically did her homework, her neighbor would play his violin in his den, and the music always helped Maggie study. But for the past few weeks, her neighbor's house had been completely silent. And the reason for that was pretty tragic. So Maggie's neighbor was 19-year-old Kenneth Null, and he was like this unbelievably talented musician. As a young child, he had been like this violin prodigy. And now as a 19-year-old, he was like on another level with how good he was at playing that instrument. And so it was basically common knowledge that someday, probably soon, he was going to be famous. However, just a few weeks ago, Kenneth had been in a terrible car accident, and his right arm was completely mangled. Doctor said he would never use it again, which meant his violin career was over. Maggie knew that Kenneth was just completely devastated. His whole life had been built on playing the violin. It's like, what's he gonna do now? And furthermore, Maggie herself had barely seen him leave the house since he got home from the hospital. It was like he was a shut-in. It was like his life was wrecked. And so for Maggie, as she sat there by the window, listening to the silence, she just couldn't take it anymore. She just really wanted to help Kenneth, even if it was something small, because he really had helped her a great deal over the many times she'd done her homework listening to his music. She wanted to return the favor. So she got up from the table and she walked over to the cupboard and she found a candy bar on the top shelf. And she decided she would go next door, she would give this to Kenneth, and it would cheer him up. A few minutes later, Maggie was standing on Kenneth's front porch, and she had her candy bar hidden behind her back, and with her other hand, she was knocking on the door. And a moment later, the door opened, and it was Kenneth. And immediately, Maggie could tell that, even though she knew Kenneth was probably not doing well, he looked awful, like he was in really bad shape. His damaged arm, was in a sling across his chest, and his hair was greasy, and there were bags under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping. To Maggie, it just seemed like Kenneth was extremely depressed, extremely sad.